Hello, this is U.S. Immigration Attorney Sharifa Tharpe. I'm here live to take your U.S. immigration related questions. And I am back. I have missed you as I have gone on some adventures, but I'm back and I am happy to also tell you that while I have been on my adventures, we have gotten many approvals, miraculous approvals for our clients. Even while I was away, my team continued to work hard for our clients. And we have many other clients who have joined our ST Law family, and they are also looking forward to their results. And some of those clients are located in Florida. So the ones that got approvals, they are here in Florida. And the timing is right for them because of the new law that is coming in July 1st. So I'm happy to be able to see my clients be able to take advantage of the options they have to stay in Florida and continue to live their lives there and settle down in Florida. So that's where I wanted to talk to you. Seeing that July 1st is coming up, I haven't seen anything about anything changing in regards to the law. We've already heard that it is affecting certain industries, the agricultural industry, the hospitality industry. Employers are hurting. And it is to the point where I did see a news article quoting a representative here in Florida, so part of the Florida government, pleading to immigrants or the employers, pleading to them to tell them that this law, it has no teeth, and it's just there to scare immigrants. So that's a shame that they thought that they could put it out there as a political ploy, and it is having real repercussions, and rightfully so, because it does give law enforcement the ability to use this law against immigrants, right? And when I say law enforcement, I'm talking about not law enforcement taking you away and deporting you, but rather when it comes on to, for example, driving with an out license. Before this law that's going to go into effect July 1st, if you were driving with a New York license, for example, and that New York license was issued to you despite you not having immigration status, if you are driving in the state right now up until July 1st with an out of state license, and a police officer has to accept it. They are not going to ask you about your immigration status. They can accept that out of state license. However, after July 1st, that is going to enable law enforcement to cite you, and it could also open up the possibility for individuals to have their face harsher penalties, maybe harsher fines, and possibly arrest for driving even after getting the citation for the out of state license. So that's one of the things that this law does, in fact, have teeth. It has real repercussions. Now, the state can't deport you. That's what I need you to understand, though, because I don't want you to feel as if this law is going to enable the state or police to arrest you because you don't have status or because you're working. They can arrest you and deport you. The state does not have authority to do that. That's the federal government. Speaking of which, good news did come through the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court is the highest court in the land, and right, it's a national court, and the court. So previously, when the Biden administration first came in, they had implemented a new policy that says that they are not going to arrest or deport immigrants, even if you're here without status, just because you're here without status. They're going to prioritize immigrants who are a threat to national security or public safety. So, for example, are they dangerous? Does their history, their criminal history, also imply that they would be it would be contrary to public safety and national security to allow them to stay here in the US. And so they would prioritize deportation for those immigrants. Now, Texas had sued the government, saying that the government had no right to implement that policy, that they should be deporting people just based on not having status at all. Of course, the Biden administration, they're saying if you're here, yes, you may not have status, but you're following the law, you're working, you're abiding by the rules here, you're not a threat to public safety, they're not going to just go and arrest you. The government there did not want that. And so the Supreme Court went ahead and sided with the Biden administration, saying that the state had no basis to tell the federal government how to run their show. So that's great news, in that the Biden administration is free to carry on with their policy, that they're not going to just get up and deport people because you're here without status, and that they can prioritize the way that they're going to do this. And the way that they choose to do it is if you're a threat. So that means that they are really limiting who they're going and arresting, who ICE is going and arresting and detaining and sending for deportation. So that's good news. So it also means that what it means is that the state can't deport you, and it's very unlikely that is just going to bust down your door and take you away because you have no immigration status. If you're abiding by the law, you're doing everything else right, then you have less fear. I mean, unfortunately, you're always going to have to face the risk here. There's always going to be a risk. As long as you're here without status, there's always going to be a risk. However, this lowers the risk that you're going to be walking down the street and ICE just picks you up, or that ICE busts through your door at where you're working, arrest you, and take you away, right? Because they're trying to make the policies fair, humane, and just. And this Supreme Court, which is surprising, by the way, it was very surprising, because so many so many horrible decisions have been coming down from the Supreme Court, that I was not expecting this decision. But they did say that the state has no right to push around the federal government to tell them how to run their show. So that's good news. So back to Florida. We're talking about Florida here. With Florida, what I want to touch on now what are your options, right? With this law in place, what are your options going forward? With July 1st coming up, what should you do? Now, what we have been doing is we have been talking to our clients and also talking to individuals who call us for help. And we are looking at every single option on the table. Marriage is not the only option, right? And the clients who we've had successes, just this past 2 weeks, we've had great successes for our clients. And these were clients that thought that they had no hope. So one client, she was being mistreated by her employer, who had promised her a work permit, which was not true. The employer can't just get you a work permit. That's not how it works. And then the employer also overworked her, underpaid her. And this got our client. We knew exactly, when our client reached out to us, we knew exactly what she qualified for. She is here in Florida. Now she has a work permit here in Florida. She didn't have one before. And she was told that her only option was to marry a US citizen. Not true. We got our client the T visa, and now she's able to, because when you're in situations like this where an employer has fraudulently promised you to get you your green card or some kind of work visa, it turns out that's not their intention. And then in addition to that, they have you working, and sometimes they get you to work by telling you these things, by promising you these things. It means that this is a form of labor trafficking by fraud. Trafficking doesn't have to just involve kidnapping you, tying you down, threatening violence to get you to do something that they want you to do. It doesn't not just involve sex trafficking, but there are forms of trafficking, labor trafficking, that if it occurs as a result of fraud, it can qualify you for the T status. So seeing that in the consultations, we are very detailed in exploring the options for our clients, we immediately picked up that our client qualified here for the T visa. We moved ahead, represented her all the way through. And then now, in addition to that, her children they are now sending the paperwork down to the embassy in Jamaica to get her children to join her here. And they're all going to have status here. And in the future, so in the near future, we will be exploring an option to get her the green card, because it does present that option as well. So these are types of options that not every single immigration attorney looks at. A lot of immigration attorneys, they focus only on, are you married? If you say no, go find a spouse. That's usually their response, or maybe employment based, but they don't look at other options. VAWA, if you're being mistreated by a citizen or resident, spouse, a parent, or an adult child, VAWA, applying for the green card without that relative or spouse, can be an option here. Asylum, right? Now, with asylum, you're on a tight deadline here. You have up to a year after entering to the US to apply for this. But asylum could also be an option here. And all of these, you can apply for these even if you're here and you don't have status yet, right? And then in addition to that, there are other options. So we do look at deferred action. We look at temporary protected status. Right now, there are certain countries where you can get temporary protected status, and there are deadlines to apply for this. So you have to be mindful of that. Right now, we're looking at, there's Ethiopia, there's Sudan, there is Haiti. All of these have TPS designations and can open you up to get a work permit here. So we look at all of these options to determine based on your circumstances, and this is where it's very fact dependent. Your circumstances matter here, and if in the consultation, when I am asking questions, if the person on the other end of the video or the phone consultation is not completely upfront with us, we can't evaluate them for these types of options. And my clients that have been most successful with have opened up completely to me about what they're facing, and they trust me, and we do get through the process. So this is where scheduling the consultation is going to be very important, because we do look at details. Now, not everyone is going to have an option. Unfortunately, I wish that's the case, but my mission is to find every single option for my clients or people who are calling for help. I don't just look at, do you have a family member? Do you have an employer? But what circumstances have you been facing? I have been successful with getting even medical deferred action where my clients have faced medical issues. I had a family member who faced medical issues and they needed time to be here. And so we got that approved for them, and you work permit with deferred action as well. So it's not just about getting the green card, but what other options are there to open you up for options here. Now I'm going to go ahead. Now, what if there are no options here? And this is where the consultation is very important, by the way, because you want to evaluate your risk. If you're here in Florida, what kind of employer are you working for, right? Because this bill that's being passed in Florida, it targets immigrants who are working without a permit, and it targets employers who are hiring immigrants without their work permit. So the first thing we do is we evaluate each individual's options to see if there is some relief or benefit that can open them up to get the work permit. But if you don't, you need to evaluate what are the risk factors involved. This bill, the risk may be too high for you to stay here. For instance, if you're driving every work with an out of state driver's license or an international driver's license and you can't show your current immigration status, then you face the risk of further penalties, further confrontations with law enforcement, which can cause you to face harsher consequences in the criminal justice system, unfortunately. That can be a repercussion. And you don't, nobody wants to have to face these kinds of risks. And so the next thing is to evaluate whether you do have to find other opportunities in other parts of the country or how you should approach your situation. And then there are a lot of misconceptions out there about the bill. And you want to understand, how does it apply to you specifically? Because some people are thinking they can't drive with their relatives now, because if they drive with their relatives who are undocumented, they can be charged with a felony. Now, it's not true in that if you're in the state already and you're without status, but you say you came in with a visa, that doesn't apply to you. Where it's talking about transporting an undocumented immigrant into the state can result in a felony is the immigrant came into the country without permission, without any inspection, without any visa, and they're being transported from outside of the state into the state. So if you came in with a visa, it doesn't apply to you. If you're being transported from one town in Florida to another town in Florida, that bill does not apply to you. And so to make sure, for example, I did do, and I did a consultation with a couple. The husband was just about to file for his spouse, and he had a trucking business within the state. He doesn't leave the state, and his spouse does work with him in his business. And they were extremely stressed out because they're thinking she can't work with him anymore. She can't drive him because he can get a felony charge for that, and none of that was true. So she cannot, he can't, he won't face any felonies because he's driving around Florida with her in the car. It's only if he's coming from outside of the state into Florida, and she came into the country without permission, but she came in with a visa, so it still wouldn't even apply to her. Now, another thing is that, driving around with an out of state license or international license to and from work, it may not be feasible, because if you can't drive to work because of the risk presented to you, then it may not be worth it to stay here. And this is where, though, we look at all the options available to determine whether you can get other relief that would allow you to get permission to work here. Because if you have a work permit, even if you don't get your official status yet, but you have your work permit, then it means that you can still live and work here in Florida. Because what they're looking for is that you do have permission from the federal government to be here, to work. And the work permit gives you the ability to do exactly that. So this is where it's very important to evaluate your options for the work permit. Now, work permits, I just want to let you know a little disclaimer here. Work permits is not something where you just print off the work permit form off the USCIS website and apply for a work permit. We have to first look at your circumstances to determine whether you qualify for a benefit that would allow you to get the work permit. So that's the goal here. So look at, do you qualify for a relief or a benefit through a family member to be able to get the work permit? So go ahead, schedule your appointment so we can talk about your particular circumstances. Now, what I'm going to do now is I'm just going to take some questions. So go ahead, put your questions in the comments, and I'm going to scroll through and answer those questions quickly. So I see some questions here on YouTube. Thanks so much for your questions. I'm going to answer these now. So my husband has abused me to the extent that I don't want to have anything to do with him. We have an I-130 interview tomorrow, and I decided not to go there. Will that affect me in any way? Now, I don't know if you are the immigrant. So let's see here. So he insults me, humiliates me, accuses me for everything, missing items in the home, even if he misplaced them, financial abuse. I already filed for VAWA. Will that affect me? So if you have applied for VAWA, then not there are certain steps that we have to take for our clients. If you're scheduled for an interview and you don't show up to that interview, it could affect you. It could result in a denial of your adjustment of status application. So there are certain additional steps that I don't know if you're represented by an attorney, but this is where being represented is essential. You have this process going on with your spouse. And you jumped over to VAWA. These are still treated like two separate applications. Now, usually with an I-130 petition, you also have an adjustment of status application going at the same time. So we want to save our clients from spending additional money and then also facing an adjustment of status denial, which can raise more questions, cause complications, cause confusion within the agency sometimes. So what we do is we inform the office that's doing the interview that they should hold the application, the adjustment of status application, the VAWA application, a decision is made on it, and attach the adjustment of status application to the VAWA application. That way they're not expecting you to attend the interview, or they know why you didn't show up to the interview. Otherwise, you can face additional complications. One office is issuing a denial for the I, and another office is following problems when it comes down to the just getting your green card. So if you're not represented, this is where it's essential to get representation, or just have a conversation with your attorney to just make sure that they're taking all the steps necessary. How long did that process of the T visa take? So it takes anywhere from 6 months to 18 months. On average, I'm seeing 9-10 months for the T visa decision to come through. But it's going to vary just depending on the complexity of the case. Now, one thing I want to note here is that for the T visa, you can apply for this even if you're here without your status, your papers, even if you cross the border without permission. Where you've had issues yourself in the past, we can apply for a waiver to get forgiveness. So all of that is included in our representation. And I'm so sorry also that you're going through this type of abuse and mistreatment. And I'm glad you're empowering yourself to your get the green card through VAWA. That is the correct course of action. So I'm asking for help. I've been approved from December 2022. How long does it take for me to get my work permit? I'm in Florida. So if you've been approved, I need to know what you've been approved for. Because if your petition has been approved, now you're waiting for your work permit, and it depends on how you're applying for your work permit. Are you applying through a spouse? Are you applying through family members? Here, you're applying for the work permit and you've done it through adjustment of status. then it's going to be about a 3 to 6 month timeline to get the work permit. But I don't know what kind of process you're going through. All right, go ahead, put those questions in the comments so I can answer. I'm just going through here. What if you have an international license driving in Florida? So now there are limits to driving with the international license. You have a year. You can drive on an international license for a year after entering the US. And that's where it creates a problem is after that year is up, then the officer can cite you also and prohibit you from driving on that international license. Also, after July 1st, they can now start to ask you about your immigration status because if you're not in compliance with their immigration status, then they may also invalidate that international license that you're driving with. So, after July 1st, you may see a lot more repercussions coming from driving with an international license. Do need to you are limited though to a year of driving with that international license. Okay, so I'm interested in getting a work permit. How can I go about the process? So the work permit, there are different ways to get it. It's not just about applying directly to the USCIS saying, I want a work permit. We do have to evaluate what you qualify for. And that's where the consultation is very important. You can go to the link in the profile, or you can go to the link in the description of the video on Facebook, on YouTube, and Twitch, and you'll see the link. Go there and you'll see a button to schedule your own consultation. You can go to the website also, which the website button is located at the link. Click on that and it will take you to the website where you'll see the phone number, you'll see online chat, you will see a contact form. All three of those lead to scheduling coordinators who will be more than happy to assist you. But the work permit, you can get it through adjustment of status. You can get it if you're applying for asylum, if you're applying for the T or the T visa as a victim of trafficking, U visa as the victim of certain qualifying crimes. You can get it through VAWA as well. So different options. And TPS, temporary protected status as well. Certain countries are designated as TPS countries, like Haiti, Venezuela, Ethiopia are some of the countries, Sudan are some of those countries. And so if you qualify, you make sure you meet the deadlines on those, then you could be issued a work permit as well. So now I notice here on YouTube, the question also states that the spouse who's doing the mistreating is a permanent resident. Right now, if you have a spouse who's a citizen or a permanent resident, you could apply for the VAWA green card and the work permit. Yep, and I just hope that, if you need any assistance, you know where to find me. Just go to the link in the profile, and I'll be more than happy to assist you. But based on everything that you've said here, I can see that you've went through a lot, and you have a right to apply for VAWA. You don't have to stick it out with a spouse who is doing these things to you. Doesn't matter if the spouse is a citizen or a resident. If they're a resident, you can apply for this. If they're a citizen, you can apply for this. If there are none of those, by the way, there are other options. For example, the T visa is an option here, but I would have to talk to you about what you're going through to determine whether the T visa would be the best option. But if you're an immigrant here, you're facing abuse from an individual, give us a call because we would want to figure out what's going on, what are the circumstances behind this abuse or mistreatment, and then look at possible solutions, forms of relief for you. All right. Does the SSN you receive while waiting on VAWA to be approved only for work? So the SSN is for everything. So you get a social security number, that's for everything, not just work. You'll get the work permit and your social security number, and you can use it for business, to open up bank accounts, anything you want to use it for. Um, what if someone get a letter to go to court? Can they still get help from you? Absolutely. Now, in some cases, if you do qualify for VAWA or other forms of relief, we can go back to the court and we can inform the court that you do qualify for these benefits, and they sometimes will terminate or they will put a hold on the deportation proceedings to determine whether you'll get approved for the benefit. And if you get approved for the benefit, then they terminate it altogether. So that's another benefit here of applying for VAWA, applying for the TV, is that you can possibly out of your deportation hearings and get status here and not have to face that stress. How long after biometrics for VAWA case will you get the work permit? So biometrics is all over the place. So I don't go off of biometrics. I go based on the filing date. And right now, VAWAs can take anywhere from 6 months to 12 months to get the work permit after filing. So the sooner the better. The sooner the better. Okay, so how can you without marriage, gatekeepers, LOL. So this is where, and you're gonna have some individuals that they never evaluate their options. They will never have a solution here. And there are options available. Whether that applies to you, though, is going to depend on your circumstances. So it's really up to you as to whether you want to, be skeptical about your options going forward, or you want to really figure out solutions here. And this is where the appointment with me is going to be essential. All right. So I don't see any more questions, so I'm going to head out today. But as we continue to, now we represent clients in all 50 states, not just in Florida. So whether you're in Florida or you're outside of Florida, you can always call us to get first. Let's determine what your options are, and we can get started on your case right away. You can do that by going to the link in the profile, going to the link in the description of the video. And now we are getting booked out. So I want to make sure that I get you on my schedule so I can assist you. So make sure that you make that booking ASAP so that we can talk to you as soon as possible, right? Because I am going into July now, and I want to make sure you're on my schedule. I want to help you. But the thing about helping you is I do need to talk to you. I can't do it in the DMs. I can't do it through the live. I have to talk to you to figure out what your situation is in detail. So this is where I'm leaving it up to you to reach out to get the help you need. My clients who have succeeded, this is what they've done. My clients who have contacted me and they've been successful, even in the past few weeks, we've gotten great news. They have been scared. They have been called me and they have not known what the result would be, but they just knew that they had to have some faith and they had to be brave about it. And it has worked for them. They went out on a limb, they trusted me, and we got results for them, which is the best thing ever. So I leave it to you to reach out to get the help you need. so that we can help you. All right. So have a good day, and I'll be back tomorrow. So I am back. And I am also going to be posting pictures of the adventure I've been on. But the best part of this past 2 weeks is that we have continued to get results for our clients. That has made it even more enjoyable for me to see all the results coming in, and I want you to be one of them too. All right, have a good one. I'll see you tomorrow. Bye bye.